Hey everybody, welcome to week 6 material. This is going to be brief. I just want to go over the importance of being able to export and import work, exporting work out of Maya into other programs and importing work into Maya itself. It's not as simple as just loading a scene. There is a little bit to it. Let's first discuss exporting our work. So I have this model here that I made a long time ago. I want to export it out to use in other programs or maybe even a game engine, right? Let's get to work on actually setting this up for exporting because as it is currently, it looks okay, but it's actually not ready to be exported just yet. First thing I always want to do when I'm exporting something out of Maya is to lay it flat on the ground, which in this case is the grid. Do my best to center it. I also want to move the pivot point, so D. And I'm going to move the pivot to my origin. It's always a good idea when you're moving a program out of Maya to keep the origin at the base of an object, as opposed to what we usually do when we work with Maya, which is keep it at the center. We keep it in the center when we work with Maya, but when it's time to get it out of Maya into other programs, we want the pivot to be at the base. So I have that. Next thing I need to do is properly scale it. It looks like it's an okay size at this point, right? You know, laid out across my grid as it is. But in reality, this is actually really, really, really small. And we can go ahead and take a look at this just by going into Windows, go to our content browser. And now I'm going to bring in a human body for comparison. This is a regular sized human body in most any program, but as you will see in Maya, it is gigantic here. That is because the things that you make in Maya are really, really, really small by default. And we can actually see in Windows settings preferences, if we go into our settings, we can see our working units by default are centimeters. This is why our stuff is naturally going to be really, really small in Maya as compared to in other programs. So we want to scale it up. Now that this is done, we have the pivot at the base. It's very easy. We can just uniformly scale and it'll be brought up. This is a very big model, so I would expect it to be pretty big like this. Is it about an appropriate size? Maybe like this. I don't need to make it that gigantic. Human body, I can hide the grid. Now, this is ready to be exported. Right after I delete by type my history. So I'm going to delete by type my history, modify, freeze my transformations. There we go. Took a second because this is a very detailed model, so it takes a second for that kind of stuff to happen. All right, let's actually export it. To export something, I would recommend, you can just go to File, Export All, but I would recommend exporting selections as opposed to entire scenes. With entire scenes, you may accidentally be exporting out things like cameras or controls or rigs or stuff that you don't want to export out when you're just meaning to take out something as simple as the geometry. So I would recommend you select the things that you want to actually export out, whether it's one thing or it's multiple things, select them via the viewport or the outliner, and then go to File, then go to Export Selection, go to our settings. We're going to change the file type, so we don't want to export as a basic Maya binary, which is what all our work files are by default. We want to export as an FBX. You can also export as an OBJ. There's also lots of other options here to export as. I would recommend anytime you're exporting your work, it's either OBJs or FBXs. There's a little bit more work involved with OBJs, so for the purposes of keeping it simple, we're going to work with FBXs. So I'm going to select FBX. Don't have to change any more here. Let's go to Export Selection. It's going to take us to this menu here. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger so I can emphasize something. I'm going to give this a name, my model. It's going to be exported as an FBX. It's going to be saved as an FBX, but again, you can also choose OBJs if you want to, but FBXs, we're going to keep it simple with that. Before we say export selection, we're going to make sure that in this big chunk of options that we have here, we open up file type specific options. We open up include. We navigate down to where it says embed media, and then we check off embed media. This is going to be a lot more important, especially if you're trying to import stuff for a game engine. But even now, when you're not trying to do that, it's it's just a good idea to get into the habit of checking this box off every time you export something. So with embed media checked off, and this is going to be saved to my desktop, I am going to export the selection. Give that a second. It has now been successfully exported. Fantastic. Minimizing Maya now, let's go ahead and check out our desktop. We can see the FBX file that we created is right here. With an FBX, we can go ahead and place our model originally from Maya in a multitude of other programs or websites. For example, we can place it in Mudbox to actually do some sculpting work with it. I'm not going to because this model wasn't designed for sculpting work. That's why there's so much red stuff here highlighted to highlight problems, but this model wasn't designed for sculpting in the first place. But I did want to show you that you can get it into this program if you wanted to. Additionally, I can put it into other modeling software like Blender if I wanted to, and do additional work on a different modeling software. I can get this FBX onto a website for my portfolio if I wanted to. As an FBX, you can do a lot more to share your work from Maya as compared to just working with the basic Maya binary or Maya ASCII files. As FBXs or as OBJs, you can move your work into a multitude of other programs and from that moment on expand on what you're doing or show it off as a portfolio piece. Went ahead and made a new scene here because now I want to talk about importing stuff. To import something into Maya, it's not as simple as just going to OpenScene. OpenScene is only going to give you access to Maya binary files, Maya scenes, or Maya ASCIIs, Maya LTs, but not FBXs and not OBJs. So what do you do in that case? In that case, you have to go to File, you need to go to Import, and then you need to track down your actual FBX or OBJ file. In this case, my previous model that I was showing off. Here it is. Properly imported in. Gets a slightly different material, but with the material, it's as simple as just assigning it a new material and giving it a color, and it's back to how it was before. One final note, let's say I wanted to export this as an OBJ. Let's go ahead and go to File. Let's go to, let's actually select it first. File, Export Selection, Settings. Instead of an FBX, let's go to the other acceptable form of exported file, which is an OBJ export. Going to export the selection. This time, I don't have the option to embed media. Instead, what's going to happen, I'm going to go ahead and create a special folder just for this, because we're going to need it. Exported test. And I'm going to go ahead and put it into the exported test folder and call this my model. Let's minimize. We see our exported test folder that I created. Let's open this up because unlike the FBX, where when you embed media, you can export your file, your work into just one file. As an OBJ, you actually have two files to worry about. You have the actual OBJ itself, and then you have something called a .mtl file. A .mtl file is a material file. OBJs will only ever carry geometry information. The material is carried in the .mtl file. If you want to properly export and use OBJs, then you have to make sure you keep the material file alongside the OBJ at all times. You want to make sure that you create a special folder anytime you export out an OBJ, and that the .material file stays next to the OBJ the entire time. You don't mess with the names, you don't move around where the MTL file is, you keep it next to the OBJ at all times. This is something that you will be more exposed to in later courses, but I just want to introduce you to the concept now. FBXs, the reason why we work with them, the reason why they're so simple to work with is after you embed the media, you just have the one file here to worry about. Whereas with OBJs, also acceptable, also usable, but you have two files to worry about, the OBJ and the .material. Always, always, always make sure the .material is next to the OBJ at all times. I will also be linking a video from my CMT 232 course, just a very basic one on how exporting works in tandem with game engines. It's not something you have to worry about for this course. It's just something I want you to be aware of moving forward with the program. So thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.